I don't even know where to start with this because honestly, I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. My name's Jason, and I was with my wife, Emily, for about 5 years before everything fell apart. We were planning our wedding, had a pretty good life together. At least I thought so. She was a bit of a bitch sometimes, always throwing fits if things didn't go her way, but I figured it was just her personality. Deep down, I always felt like she was a bit manipulative, but I convinced myself that love meant accepting all her flaws. At first, there weren't any real signs that something was wrong. She'd be a little bitchy, yeah, but that was just her. She was very good at hiding her true feelings. The only thing that felt off was that she became strangely distant in the months leading up to the wedding. She started canceling plans last minute, saying she was busy or just tired, and I thought maybe she was nervous or overwhelmed. I was trying to be supportive, you know. I even gave her space, thinking maybe she just needed some time to herself. But then, small things started to bug me more and more. Her phone started ringing at weird hours. She'd quickly hide it, flip it upside down, or put it face down so I couldn't see the screen. I caught her lying once about where she was. She said she was at her sister, but I saw her texting someone on the way home. Just little things that didn't add up. Still, I didn't confront her because I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself maybe she was just stressed or having an affair with some guy, but I refused to think she'd do that to me, especially not now. Then one day, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I was walking up the driveway when I saw her car parked outside the house, which was weird because she usually told me where she was going. I looked through the window, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There she was, Emily, kissing my best friend, Ryan. Not just a quick kiss, but full-on making out like they'd been doing it for a while. My heart just stopped for a second. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I froze there watching them, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. I wanted to storm in and confront her right then, but I couldn't. I just stood there, stunned. My mind was racing. How long had this been going on? Were they planning something? Did she actually want to run away with him? I knew Ryan was just my best friend, but I always trusted him. Turns out I was wrong. That was the moment I realized everything I thought I knew about my wife and my best friend was a lie. They weren't just cheating. It looked like they were planning to leave together, like they'd been scheming for weeks. I felt betrayed, humiliated, furious, and broken all at once. I don't know how long I stood there before I finally turned around and walked back into the house. The world felt like it was crumbling beneath me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every second was filled with the image of her lips on his, the way they looked so damn comfortable, so eager. I kept asking myself why she'd do this, why she'd lie and hide everything from me. Why her? I thought I knew her, but I was clearly deluding myself. All I wanted was to find out the truth, no matter how ugly it was going to be. The next morning, I didn't bother to pretend I was okay. I called her out on everything the minute she walked into the house after work. I didn't hold back. I told her I saw her kissing Ryan, that I knew about the plans, and I wanted the truth. Her reaction was so dismissive, it was like I wasn't even talking to my wife. She rolled her eyes and shrugged like I was bothering her with some childish game. "Oh, please," she said, tossing her hair. "You're just overreacting. You're being paranoid. You probably saw something that wasn't even there." That's her favorite line whenever she gets caught in a lie. She's a good liar too, and her tone was so condescending I almost believed her for a second. But I wasn't born yesterday. I knew she was lying, and I knew she was trying to gaslight me into doubting my own eyes. I pressed her harder. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I'd just shrug it off and go on with my life as if nothing happened?" She smirked in that bitchy way of hers and said, "Honestly, Jason, you're being so dramatic. Ryan and I were just friends. We've always been just friends. And no, we're not planning to run away. You're just jealous because you're insecure, typical." I couldn't believe I was hearing this. My wife, the woman I was supposed to marry, was sitting there, lying with a straight face, trying to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. I felt a mixture of rage and despair. How could she be so cold? How could she lie to my face like that? I started to shake. My jaw clenched as I looked at her, realizing that she had no remorse, no shame. She was just playing her game, trying to make me doubt myself. That moment, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I had to get evidence. I had to find out how deep this went. I wanted to know if she really planned to leave with Ryan or if it was just some sick fantasy of hers. So I started looking through her things, her phone, her emails, her social media accounts. I was determined to catch her in the act or at least find proof of their plans. I even installed a spy app on her phone just to be sure. It was wrong, I know, but I was desperate. And then I found it. A series of texts between her and Ryan from just a few days ago. They were talking about how they couldn't wait to run away together, how they'd escape the town and start fresh, and how she couldn't wait to finally be free from me. The messages were full of promises, plans, and even a date they'd set to leave. I read and reread those texts in disbelief. My best friend, my wife, planning to leave me for each other right before our wedding. I felt like my world was collapsing again, only this time it was worse because I finally knew the truth. They'd been lying to my face all along, pretending everything was fine, while secretly plotting their escape. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe. I was furious at Ryan, furious at Emily, furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. I was just broken. The trust I once had was shredded into tiny pieces. I kept thinking about all the moments I missed, all the signs I brushed aside, all the times I wondered why she was acting different. Turns out, she was just waiting for the perfect moment to walk away, right before the wedding I'd been planning for months. I don't even know how I managed to keep my composure after that. Part of me just wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew I had to be smart. I needed a plan. I needed to understand the full scope of her lies before I did anything reckless. After I discovered those texts, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Everything I thought I knew about Emily and Ryan was a lie. Every moment, every conversation, every promise. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The betrayal was so visceral, so raw, that I started to question my own judgment. How did I miss all the signs? Was I such a fool that I didn't see the signs of her sneaking around? Or was she just that good at hiding it? I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I took the evidence I'd gathered, the screenshots of the texts, the emails, everything, and I kept it all in a folder on my phone. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to be strategic. I called her into the living room that evening just after dinner. She was her usual bitchy self, trying to act annoyed that I was making a big deal out of nothing, but I didn't let her get away with it. I laid the evidence out on the table and looked her right in the eyes. Her reaction was immediate. She looked at the screenshots, her face twisting into a mixture of shock and annoyance. She started to deny everything, claiming I was crazy, that I'd misunderstood, or that I was just jealous. She called my emotions overreactions and dismissed the whole thing like it was nothing. That was the moment I realized she was a master manipulator. She's always been good at twisting things around, making herself the victim, and gaslighting me so I doubt myself. I pushed harder. How long has this been going on? How long have you been planning to run away with Ryan? Her eyes flickered for a moment, then she scoffed and said, "You're blowing this out of proportion, Jason. You're just insecure. Ryan's my friend and I never did anything with him. You're crazy if you think I'd leave you for him or anyone." But her words felt so hollow, so empty. I could see the lie behind her eyes. I knew she was lying, and I knew that she'd been lying for a long time. I asked her flatly, "Are you planning to leave me? Is that what you've been working on all this time?" She rolled her eyes, huffed, and said, "I don't have to answer that. You're just being paranoid. I'm tired of this. You're accusing me of stuff I didn't do." It was her classic way of avoiding the truth. She thought she was so clever, so manipulative, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew she was planning her escape, and I knew Ryan was in on it. At that moment, I felt a deep well of anger rising in me. I'd loved her, I'd trusted her, and she'd just thrown it all away. I was furious that she'd lied, that she'd betrayed me with my best friend, and that she'd been planning to run away just before our wedding. I wanted to scream, to shout, to break something, but I kept my calm because I knew I had to be careful. I needed to figure out what to do next, how to confront Ryan, and how to protect myself from her manipulations. I spent the rest of the night trying to put everything together in my head. I realized that I couldn't trust her anymore. She'd lied too many times, crossed too many lines. My mind kept circling back to the fact that she was the one I'd trusted most, and she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. I started to think about my options, whether I should just pack my bags, leave her, or try to confront Ryan directly. I didn't want to make any hasty decisions, but deep down I knew this was the end of the line. I'd been played, I'd been humiliated, and now I was left standing in the wreckage of what I thought was a life built on love. The following days were a blur of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, smug and dismissive as if she'd already moved on. I kept replaying her lies, her excuses, how she tried to make me doubt myself. The worst part was realizing that Ryan, my supposed best friend, had been part of it all. I thought he was loyal, someone I could trust. Turns out, he was just another snake in the grass. I decided I had to take control of the situation. I couldn't let her keep lying or pretend everything was fine. I needed proof, interviews, something concrete. So I set up a plan. I contacted Ryan, pretending I was still in the dark. I arranged to meet him secretly under the guise of wanting closure or answers. I kept my cool even though inside I was seething. I had to know if he was truly in on the plan or just as blindsided as I was. I also kept a voice recorder running just in case I needed it later. The meeting with Ryan was tense. We met at a quiet bar downtown. I acted calm, but I was seething underneath. I asked him straight out about the texts and her plans to run away. His face flickered and he hesitated, but then he finally admitted, yes, they'd been talking about it. He said she'd come to him conflicted, that she'd been considering leaving me because she was tired of my boring life and that she felt trapped. Ryan even mentioned that they'd set a date to leave, maybe in a couple of weeks. I got all of it recorded. I didn't say a word, just listened and took mental notes. After that, I decided I had enough. I went back to her place and confronted her again. She was already acting like she had everything under control, brushing me off, trying to act like I was the crazy one. I threw the recordings on the coffee table and looked her in the eyes. "So this is what it's come to," I said. "You're planning to run away with Ryan just before our wedding. You lied to my face, lied to everyone. How could you do this to me?" Her response was typical, more denial, more accusations that I was insecure, jealous, paranoid. She called me clingy and possessive, told me I was crazy for believing I had any say in her life. I felt a cold wave of grief mixed with rage. I'd loved her. I'd wanted a future with her. I trusted her more than anyone. And she'd thrown it all away for some sick thrill, some stupid idea of freedom she thought she'd find with Ryan. I was so hurt I couldn't even cry. I just sat there, staring at her, realizing that the woman I thought I knew was nothing but a liar and a manipulator. I knew I had to act fast before they actually left. I told her I knew everything about the texts, the plans, the lies, and that she needed to decide what she wanted. To stay and face the consequences or to walk away and lose everything. That moment she looked at me with that bitchy smirk like she was already one step ahead. She said, "You're overreacting. You don't own me. If I want to run away, I will. And Ryan's my friend, not some villain. You're just jealous because I finally found someone who makes me happy." That's when I realized she was just trying to gaslight me again, make me doubt my instincts, and pretend she was the victim. But I was falling for it this time. I knew the truth, and I knew I'd be better off without her. The pain was immense, but I knew I couldn't stay in this nightmare anymore. I had to decide whether I was going to fight for my dignity or just let her walk all over me. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I felt like I was walking around in a daze, carrying the weight of betrayal on my shoulders. I kept thinking about everything, her lies, the plans to run away, Ryan's involvement, and I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind. I'd trusted her, loved her, believed in the future we'd built. Now all that was shattered and I was left with nothing but a pile of broken promises and a deep sense of loss. I knew I had to make a choice. Staying in this chaos wasn't going to fix anything, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into believing her lies again. I decided I needed to get out of the house, get some space to think. I packed a bag, took a few days off work and stayed at a friend's place. It was a temporary escape, but I needed to clear my head and figure out what the next step was. At night, I would lie awake, replaying the events over and over, trying to find a way to move on, to heal, even if that felt impossible right now. Meanwhile, I kept gathering evidence. I didn't want to be caught off guard again. I also started documenting everything: the emotional abuse, the lies, her dismissiveness, so I could have a clear record if I needed to take legal action or just prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. Every day, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I was angry because I'd been betrayed so deeply, and I was sad because I loved her and thought she loved me back. It was like mourning a death, the death of the relationship I believed in. I reached out to Ryan a few more times, trying to get closure, trying to understand why my best friend had betrayed me so badly. His explanations were vague, full of excuses like she was confused, or she didn't mean to hurt me. But I could see right through it. Ryan knew exactly what he was doing. He was just as guilty in my eyes. I realized that they had been planning this all along, maybe even before I ever suspected. That made the betrayal even worse. It wasn't just a fling. It was a calculated plan to walk away together, leaving me blindsided and humiliated. Looking back, I understand now that I was naive in thinking she was the woman I loved. She was manipulative, selfish, and did everything she could to hide her true self. I don't regret finding out the truth, even if it's painful. Better to know now than to keep living a lie. I've started to accept that I can't change her or Ryan, and I can't undo what's been done. What I can do is focus on myself, get stronger, rebuild my life, and learn from this nightmare. No one deserves to be lied to, betrayed, and used like I was. That's the biggest lesson I've learned: trust is fragile, and some people will hurt you just because they can. Moving forward, I know I'll be more careful, more cautious, and definitely less naive about who I let into my life. After a few weeks of being away, I finally felt like I was starting to breathe again. The pain was still there, a dull ache that never fully went away, but I was determined to move forward. I cut all contact with Emily and Ryan. I didn't want to see their faces or hear their voices anymore. I needed to reclaim my life piece by piece and rebuild what I'd lost. I went through all the evidence I had collected, the texts, emails, recordings, and used it to file for a divorce. It was a messy process, full of emotional ups and downs, but I knew I couldn't stay in that toxic situation. I also sought therapy, not just to deal with the heartbreak, but to understand how I'd let this happen and how I could prevent it from happening again. That's the real lesson. I'd been so trusting, so eager to see the good in people, that I ignored the signs. Now I have a better sense of boundaries, and more importantly, a stronger sense of my own worth. In the end, I decided I'd rather be alone than with someone who lied, cheated, and manipulated me. I realized I deserved someone who would treat me with honesty and respect, not someone who would run away with my best friend and lie to my face. The betrayal hurt so badly, but it also made me realize who I truly am: someone who can survive heartbreak, who can pick himself up after being knocked down. Looking back, I see this nightmare as a harsh but necessary lesson. It taught me that trust isn't something to be handed out blindly. It also showed me the importance of listening to that small voice inside that says something's off, even if you don't want to see it. I hope anyone reading this learns from my experience. Don't ignore the signs, don't justify the lies, and never let someone treat you like you're disposable. Love is supposed to feel safe, not like you're walking on shattered glass. I've come out the other side battered but stronger, and I know someday I'll find someone who deserves my trust and my heart, someone who won't lie or run away when things get tough.